We open on a Martian bar. John Ross, a visiting planetary anthropologist from Earth, is enjoying a drink with a local guide he's hired to take him east to Shun, where he plans to stay for a year studying its people. When a cloaked man enters the bar, John becomes aware that not a single person seems to notice this individual. It's as if he's a ghost, as if he's being shunned by staff and patron alike. When John asks his guide about it, the guide refuses to divulge any information on the man, so John takes it upon himself and has a seat with the stranger. During a brief exchange, the stranger identifies himself as Corin and his desire to return to his city of Shandakor, which he regrets leaving. This conversation leads John to believe that here before him may be a member of an as yet undocumented Martian strain of humanity, as well as an until now unheard of city and nation. Corin suggests his city is currently in its dying days, but that at one time it was a city so powerful the lesser races of Martian man resented it and its people. John can see the chair, the position back home waiting for him at the university, along with the prestige and fame of this discovery. Corin can't make the trip across the desert alone, but John and his caravan are heading that direction already, and he agrees to take Corin to Shandakor. Days later, when the road to Shun leads one way and the road to Shandakor another, John leaves his caravan behind to wait for him at Corin's request, for he forbids anyone but John to accompany him any further. John agrees and correctly suspects Corin has used him to get this far and will shortly kill him, having no intention of leading a stranger to Shandakor. John survives the attack, which ends with Corin killing himself. Once dead, John removes Corin's cloak to finally get a good look at this mysterious traveler. His skin is golden, with remnants perhaps of scales on his chest, forearms, and ears. The ears are pointed, with tufts of hair on the end. His hair is unlike anything John has seen before, almost as if it's alive and responding to his touch, but it dies shortly after Corin. This is no race John's aware of. His dreams of discovery and prestige begin to grow. John barely survives the last of the journey after running out of water, and upon discovering Shandakor in a valley surrounded by ancient eroded mountain peaks, he finds it under siege by barbarians and men of nearly every nation of Mars. They rob him, refuse him help or shelter, and tell him to find water in Shandakor if he needs it so badly. John travels into the valley, mounts an ancient ramp leading to the city of Shandakor. He's shocked to find the wide gates to the city open. The guards up on the walls look relaxed and indifferent to the surrounding barbarian camps. He enters and is shocked once more to see a thriving, bustling marketplace, peopled with members of every human race ever to walk Mars, and many he doesn't recognize. Here too he sees Shandakorians like Corin in all their beauty and grace. They walk like gods among the lesser races. It's at this moment that John notices a lack of sound, any sound. People are moving about, talking, laughing, bartering, but the only thing John hears is the wind and his own breath, and no one seems to see or notice him. No one responds to his attempts to get their attention. He wanders the silent city, exploring its depths, realizing that upon first entering, he was in a sort of ghetto for the lesser races. Following eerily silent Shandakorians, he enters the city proper and is bombarded by beauty, by the workings of a race more talented and skilled than any before or since. The architecture, the colors, the art, it all far surpasses anything he's seen anywhere on Mars before. During a moment of inattention, he finds himself cornered with two groups of people heading toward him from either direction. Unable to get out of the way, a group of soldiers walk straight through him. He begins to lose his sanity. Is he dead? Hallucinating? He appears to be in a ghost town, but seems to be the only one invisible to everyone else. He runs through the streets mindlessly, heedless of the images of people as he plows through them, until he meets opposition and finds himself on the ground. The men he's just run into are very real. What's more, their movements are audible and they speak. He passes out, awakens in a small room with a number of Shandakorians. They are beautiful beyond words. When asked his business trespassing in Shandakor, he tells them of Corin, of being robbed by the barbarians and desperately needing water. The Shandakorians have no water to spare, especially for a human. A year ago, the barbarians cut off access to the underwater aqueduct that brings water from the polar cap. They won't have to wait much longer for Shandakor to fall. They tell John he'll have to be killed. He cannot have a share of their water, and he cannot be allowed to leave the city, as the only thing holding back the barbarians is their superstitious fear of the ghostly inhabitants of the city that they take for magic. To see John both enter and leave unharmed would reduce that superstition. As the decision is made to kill him, a young female Shandakarian named Dwani pleads for his life. She will split her share of water with him, at least for a while. The others, reluctantly under the order of their elder Rul, oblige. As a result, John has his legs chained together, as well as his wrists. He's free to explore the city with Dwani when he's not engaged in the task Rul has assigned him: the maintenance and operation of machinery in a tower near the center of the city with a glowing, rotating sphere atop it. Rul explains that the sphere uses solar power and a technology whose understanding is lost to the last remnants of Shandakor's populace to project recordings of the city's far past all across Shandakor. These projections from antiquity are the only thing keeping the barbarians at bay. Its failure would see the end of the siege and the end of the once great nation of Shandakor. But the water will run out long before then, and they will submit to the place of sleep when that time comes. John surmises the place of sleep is a building they will enter to die. Over the next few weeks, John learns of Shandakor and its proud people through Dwani, who he starts to fall in love with, and Rul the Elder. John asks why they can't simply leave the city like Corin did, rather than choose to die a slow death surrounded by the facade of their once great but now derelict city. Dwari explains that the world outside the city's walls is not theirs. It wouldn't be the same. They honor Shandakor and its history by living out their lives as its last descendants within its walls, even if it means taking their own lives soon enough when the water runs out. When John questions Rul's air of superiority over the other races of man, Rul explains. "You are human," he said. "Do you wish the truth?" "Of course." "Then I will tell you. We developed the faculty of reason." "Come," John said. "Man is a reasoning being, on Earth the only reasoning being." "I do not know of Earth," he answered courteously, "but on Mars man has always said, 'I reason. I am above the beasts because I reason.' And he has been very proud of himself because he could reason. It is the mark of his humanity. Being convinced that reason operates automatically within him, he orders his life and his government upon emotion and superstition. He hates and fears and believes, not with reason, but because he is told to, by other men or by tradition. He does one thing and says another, and his reason teaches him no difference between fact and falsehood. His bloodiest wars are fought for the merest whim, and that is why we did not give him weapons. His greatest follies appear to him the highest wisdom. His basest betrayals become noble acts, and that is why we could not teach him justice. We learned to reason. Man only learned to talk." John feels resentment towards Shandakor and its people, though he can't argue with what he's seen from the tower's projections of the city's ancient past. After multiple arguments with Dwani, attempting to talk her out of suicide with the rest of her people, John is fed up. He doesn't want to lose Dwani over her pledge to what he sees as self-delusion. He brings her to the top of the tower, and he destroys its mechanisms. The projections disappear. Below, all around them, the true state of the city is revealed. Dwani sees, for the first time in her life, the time-eroded, desiccated streets of the only home she's ever known. "Why?" she whispered. "Why?" She turned to him. Her face was pitiful. "I couldn't let you die? Not for dreams and visions? Nothing. Look, Dwani, look at Shandakor. Shandakor is broken and ugly and forlorn. It is a dead city, but you're alive. There are many cities, but only one life for you." Still she looked at him. It was hard to meet her eyes. She said, "We knew all that, John Ross. Forget the past and think of tomorrow. We can get through the barbarians. Corin did, and after that, you would still be human, and I would not." From below them in the dim and empty streets there came a sound of lamentation. "And I am glad that you are human," she whispered. "You will never understand what you have done." She leaves him, and being chained, he is slow to catch up to her. When he does, she's in line with the remaining population of Shandakor, heading to the place of sleep. John begs Rul to let him die with Dwani, and Rul replies with contempt that there isn't even reason to kill John in retaliation. What would it matter? "But I did this thing. I did it." "You are only human," Rul replies. John begs to be allowed to die with them, and Rul knocks him unconscious. He awakes hours later in a barbarian camp. In raiding the city, they found him, and, being superstitious, believed that he had brought about Shandakor's fall. Years later, we see John reflecting on these events. "I sit in the chair that I craved at the university, and my name is written on the roll of the discoverers. I am eminent, I am respectable, I, who murdered the glory of a race. Why didn't I go after Dwani into the place of sleep? I could have crawled, I could have dragged myself across those stones, and I wish to God I had. I wish that I had died with Shandakor.